That's the problem, Prof. Because this, again, if you miss the beginning, we're talking to Professor Jeremy. He was my head of department at when I was doing my master's in one of the leading universities here in the UK. Now, Prof, that is the problem, because we started from a point of talking about your passion towards thinking. Now, because you are a thinker, you've developed that skill, you now know when to ask the question, why? How did we get here? Now, a lot of people have found themselves being boxed by society, curriculum, and put in that category, but because they've not developed that skill to think, they can't ask the right question. And we tend not to see this in our everyday life, and it's the same thing. Now, how do we tackle this? Just to throw more light on this also, if you think about it from an academic perspective, we have students now who are going to be graduating, and they've been boxed with curriculum. They've been told you need to finish and get a job and be employed. But why do you need to be employed? Why can't you go into business? Why can't you own your own company and start your own enterprise?
Yeah, so I think if you sort of go back in history, you'll see people popping up every so often in history to remind people exactly about what you're saying. So, I mean, we can look at the great religious, that they end up, Christianity has been born out of somebody who popped up and started asking those questions, what you'd call inconvenient questions and you can see the friction that arises straight away. Gandhi popped up.
Even in Christianity, we have multiple different versions. We have the Catholic, the Roman, the Anglicans, the Pentecostals. Let's keep going.
Of course, they keep going because, and essentially, I remember saying this once, a prophet is somebody who comes to remind us of the blindingly obvious that we've forgotten. We've just forgotten. It's completely obvious what they say. Nobody ought to be surprised, but somehow we forgot. It's emperor's new clothes, if you know this story. And I think the thing is that it's the ability to ask simple questions about simple things. That's the thing. Not get distracted. By the noise. And there's a guy, I can't remember who it was, but he was a many times billionaire. Gave all his money away in the end. I think his child died, and he reassessed his life and he realised all the things he thought were important. None of it was important. And part of the problem is and I do get involved. I mean, I can't claim I am, I'm not immune to any of this stuff.
Oh yeah, but sometimes we get lost in the whole thing and then we come out of it.
Yes, the measurement of our success by the money, that's problematic to me because we clutter our lives with stuff that we think is going to somehow make us happy. But in the end, it's
let
really.
me put it this way: we waste a lot of our lifetime chasing things that are not relevant to the fulfillment of life. Material things. You want to drive the most flashy car. Well,
I saw your car, so yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, matey.
That's luck. Someone once said that the things we regret most in life, it's never the things we did, it's the things we did not do.
That's right.
It's not even the things we did not buy, but the things the time not spent with family, the holidays not gone to, the experience not had. And we lose all of this because we're busy chasing things money could buy.
Yeah.
We're not living in a society they've boxed us against to say money is king, is the ultimate. You need to have a lot of it to be happy.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things I remember saying, this is when I was a lecturer, was definitely nobody gets to the end of the day and say, you know what, I didn't do enough marking today. I didn't do enough marking. I did too much actually talking to people, and I didn't do enough marking. And it's strange. It's like people will say, I don't want it written. People never say, I need to do more work. They're always saying, I need to spend more time with my family.
Absolutely.
Everybody says that, and you think to yourself, at some point you've got to wake up and smell the coffee. We're saying that because we organise that for ourselves. Do you know what I mean? We're the ones who did that to ourselves. Why? And inside the university, many times I've said, why don't we try and do less marking? What is it that we're actually trying to measure? Can we measure in a person anything worth measuring? If somebody says to me, is knowledge honest? I can't
It
tell you.
depends on the situation.
I can't tell you. I said, no, because how do I assess that? How do I say? Because first of all, and there's a Latin phrase, something like quid custodiis, who watches the watchers? Who says the people who are making the assessments so I would have sat in many situations with a bunch of academics assessing presentations. These people can't present for toffee. They can't present, and they're going to mark somebody else. They're going to measure their group work. They can't behave in a team. They're academics. Academics aren't, on the whole. The education system promotes the idea of individual success. I don't sit and do a group A level. They will measure me on what I did on my own. In life, everything depended on me being able to collaborate with people and work in a team. So it's like you've got these two things. It's clear the education system is not designed to make the people we need. It's clear all the assessment is not designed to make the people we need. It's as obvious as the noses on our faces, and you say to people, can you see the mismatch? And their eyes roll, and it's like, what is it that I have to keep explaining to you here? This does not make sense. And it's that thing. And so it's not just, there's a blind spot in everybody about something. And these are very, very clever people. I sat there trying to explain to a room full of academics, exams are useless, but then some of our students do very well in exams. You go, okay, so who marks them? Well, I do. So tell me how sensible this is. You're a person who wants exams to be a measure of the success of your students. You set the test, then you mark it, they do well, and then you say it's successful. Tell me this is not a closed system. Where's the authentic achievement in what they did? Can somebody else sit outside and say, these people can do X, Y, or Z? So Io and I, we were sort of pressing front. Can we have something like the students can do something and they get a badge for it? They can handle data. I don't need to get 67% or 92%. Can they do it, yes or no? Can I leave them on their own with a task, with something like that, and they will perform it? And if they can do that, I can give them a badge to say they can do it. And then if a company, so back to if a company says, I want somebody who can do that, I can say, oh, that's good, I've got a student. He's not going to pack shelves in Asda. She's going to actually sit there on her desk. She's going to give you value, and she's going to learn a useful skill. And that's an opportunity for that person, right? So essentially, our job was to maximize opportunities for people to collect things of value inside the university that they could themselves. So we're now doing projects for the master's students. And we've got a thing, and what I'm saying to them is, look, we're going to go in 2-week cycles. You will get your tasks. We're going to look at the professional standards, and you're going to tell me which of these professional standards you think being able to complete that task is going to do. You're going to tell me that. And then at the end of it, when you've completed it, we're going to say, yes, you've completed the task, and I'm now going to tick against those things that you've completed a task against these professional standards. And that's what you can do to get accreditation for something. And now that's authentic. The student's in control.
Yeah.
They're telling me what they think. And all I'm doing is saying, okay, I agree with you. An assessment should be, you come to me and say, I think I can do something. Show me. I agree with you. That is that thing.
So it allows for the uniqueness of the students, but the system today it strips the students their uniqueness and puts them, everybody must follow this strict
That's
line.
right. And so when we go over to equality, so I sat in interviews I've got two particular examples. One example is I always think the interview process is an advantage to men. It's designed by men, and it rewards people who are happy to say things with no fact checking at all, blow their own trumpet.
The trumps of our society.
Yes, that's right. And that is something that women, on the whole, do not boast in the same way, is my experience. And I've seen it in interview situations. There is, and again, you've got to try not to stereotype things. They tend to resource their happiness from working as teams. The task is more important, not that it was them who completed it. For men, so I remember setting a task to a team of men and a team of women. The women started talking, the men put their arms around what they were doing and started writing. No sharing, this is about me. The women will start talking to each other. And I know it's, what's the word? It's sort of, it's stereotyping in a certain sort of way. But I think in order to try and understand, this is a conversation I'd have with one of my colleagues at the university. They say, I treat every person as an individual. And you go, well, yes, of course. However, there's patterns. We're pattern spotters. We can't understand things in society unless we can identify that a certain group of people are getting treated a certain sort of way. And that there is patterns in this.
It's one thing to identify, it's another thing to come to the acceptance. Some people don't want to accept it.
Well,
even when you prove it to them and show it to them, they'll still find a way to corner out of it.
Yes. I mean, the other example was one on, this was about people on the spectrum. And in an interview, the person on the spectrum, why do you want this job? I need some money so I can pay my bills. Now, nobody gets a job if they say that.
But that's the truth.
It's the truth, and it's actually the truth for all of us. But what we say is when we learn to lie, and as you said, it depends, we learn to lie, we say, because this is the best organisation in the world, and you're the most interesting, beautiful person ever to walk the planet, and it would be just my honour to be within a kilometre of you. Do you know what I mean? That's what people end up saying. But it's complete rubbish. This person tells the truth and people look at each other and say, oh, well, that's not a very good answer. And I remember challenging an interview panel and said, look, this guy's on the spectrum. It's actually, you're not valuing his uniqueness and his honesty. What you're valuing is people's ability to lie. And
then you come back and say, one of the qualities we want is someone who's honest. But you give me honesty on the platter. That's right. Like, no, I don't want that.
That's right.
Make up your mind.
and what and if we go to back to what about people coming into the country from other cultures, is that the difficulty is that there will be those patterns of treatment.
Absolutely.
which the people who are doing it won't know they're doing it often, and I think often the problem is that it's completely, as you said, it's this unconscious bias that's part of the problem. And there's no point attacking the unconscious bias in any of these things with a sword. The people don't know that they're doing it.
No.
And so I think in terms of, a lot of these things like, gender identity or race or these things, is that the people who are being accused of being ist, whatever that is, are baffled because they feel themselves to be good people. They don't understand why it is. They can't see it.
You cannot see the picture when you're in the frame.
No, so exactly. They can't see it. I like that phrase. They can't see the picture if you're in the frame. That's a very good phrase. And I think that's really one of the problems, is that if you can't see, there's no point people telling you. It's like, a friend told me, he says, nobody goes, yeah, right. I've believed this for the last 30 years, but now you said that, nope. I realise I've been wrong all that time. You go, nobody says that. Or it takes a person of what's the word, of almost no ego. And so ego is of course that, and I would sort of say that's the thing where people don't want to be wrong. Ego's all about, I must be right, I can't, and
can be wrong.
And I can't be wrong. And I remember in terms of when we would call it employability, I remember the moment when I sort of flipped from, and so if I look back in my life and you said, how many times did you change a lot over a short period of time? How many times have you transitioned from here to here quickly? Because, when people say, I think the important thing is you can change your mind. And when people are sort of pointing their finger at other groups of people and calling them this, that, and the other, what I want to say to them is, how often do you change your mind?
You reinvent yourself.
How often do you reinvent yourself? Because if you never did it, don't blame anybody else for not doing it.
It's easier to blame people who point finger at others.
You're blaming them for not being you.
Yeah,
you're not them. They're going to be pointing their finger at you the same way you're. How are we going to move forward if people can't see that the? So a good example I remember, and I probably should never be doing this, but it was in a lecture and I was asking what people thought about, this was Shamima Begum, you remember the woman who was in Syria, or she'd gone to fight for ISIS.
Yeah.
And I asked the students the question, they said, oh, you shouldn't be asking questions like this. I said, I should only be asking questions like this. Should we bring her back to the UK? Because there was this big argument, she's blah, 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 we should never let her back in. She's blah, 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 we should let her back in. Now, my attitude is, both of these are perfectly good arguments. Both of them, right? I can't tell you which of these is the right argument. I know I can tell you which one I favour, which one I believe, but I'm not going to say that other argument isn't an argument of equal. It will have consequences. Now, the question is, so like back to this business with the Ukrainian people coming in, it's causing real trouble because the UK has had such a negative attitude towards immigrants from other countries. Now we have immigrants from white Europeans, right? These are different to the immigrants, these are different to the immigrants from Syria. These are different to the immigrants from the West Indies. These are different. They look much more like me than these other immigrants. And you think to yourself, okay, now you've got a problem because the public, the weird public, have suddenly decided.
Waiting and watching.
We can't watch these. And you go, wait a second. There's war across the world. What's happening there isn't unusual for the world. It's unusual for us to see it in our own back garden because, and this is, I remember when we had the Brexit thing, one of the things I kept on saying is we haven't had war in Europe since the Second World War. We have not had war in Europe, right? That's important to see. 4 years or 5 years after the Brexit thing, which you have to ask yourselves, okay, I think if we hadn't had Brexit, I don't think we'd be in this situation now. I don't think, because you can't see somehow all the fracturing of the West and the arguments we had between ourselves. I don't know what the word West means.
There was fraction or fracture.
That's right. That's right. And what is looked for is an opportunity to move in a world where he thinks these people aren't together anymore.
Yep. So we technically, the EU showed him that, there's a little fracture amongst us. We're not that united as we used to be. And he thought, great time to move.
Great time to move. And he's been feeding that. And now in the US, you can see there's bits of the Republican Party, there's bits of Fox News actually repeating Putin's messaging. Because for them, it's more important that the right-wing rubbish, you can't call Democrats the left wing. I mean, it's a joke. The left in America is like right-wing for us still. But you look at that and you say, that's a direct consequence of me and my petty little whatever it is being more important than peace. And the first thing is, and I can remember, when I was a head of department, I was working with, this again, it's nothing to do with intelligence, because the most intelligent people often, whatever you mean by intelligence, of course, we've got to be careful about banding around that as a phrase. But I was trying to say to the maths community, we have to have one voice with the government about what we do. And the difficulty was, a particular group of people were saying, but what if I don't agree with you one voice? And I looked at them and I said, yes, you're missing the point. If 3 voices go along, they'll choose the one they want. if one voice goes along, it might not be the one you want, but you'll get a better shout at it.
Yep.
If we communicate our message beforehand and go with one message, then we control it. If we go with 3 messages, they control it. Do you want control or not control? And they honestly, and this is what I mean, they couldn't see what I meant.
So
but what if we don't get what we want? When do you get what you want? And so I think that this is back to that thing of feeling. There's this Sisyphus who rolls a boulder up a hill and it comes back down, or Prometheus, Prometheus on the rock, and every night his liver grows back, and then the next day the eagle comes again. And pecks his liver out, and in the end you feel as though I'm Sisyphus, I'm Prometheus. I cannot keep repeating this to these people, because essentially, they said the same thing about John the Baptist. You're a voice in the wilderness, crying, make my path straight. Nobody's listening to you. Go and get another job. And I think, after 30 years of essentially trying to say we've got to value people for who they are, not try to box them. You think, okay, it's only getting worse. And I think that I would say that in my life, it's only got worse because the forces of, I'd call them managerialism, and the idea that you manage projects and that there's a manager who doesn't understand what they manage. That idea has become a thing. I don't have to understand. I admit there are rare people who can manage things where they don't understand what they're managing, but they're like what do you call it, hen's teeth or whatever that phrase is. They're so rare. Mainly, and this idea of what's the word that they call it? People who teach first is a good example. We want to take the best. We're going to put them through this, and we're going to make the managers of the future. No. Make those people work, make them understand the task, and then let them work inside the area of expertise. Don't just move Dido Harding from being the manager
of your box.
Yeah, don't move her from talk over to managing the rollout of vaccines or whatever it is. She doesn't have a clue about that. But the problem is our politicians are all those people. They never had a profession.
A lot of them don't have a clue.
They don't. Well, I'm not. Some of them have had a profession.
Some of them do.
Some of them have had a profession. But many of them have not had a job.
Yep.
And so what do? Or if they've had a job, it's been journalism. And I don't view, for the purposes of what we're talking about, journalism as a job in that sense, because they're just commentators on other people. And they didn't actually have to go and, they didn't have to
relate to what we're talking about.
Well, that's right. So journalists are anyway. Well, don't get me on journalists. But So I think this thing about employability in the end, and that was the moment where I was saying, these people are 18 to 21. They're grown-ups. Why am I having to teach them about skills that blah, 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 blah? And then, so that was my transition. And it was, I think, early 2008, 9, 10-ish sort of time. I thought, you know what? I got this wrong. This is what I'm supposed to be here for, right? And it's not about employability. This is about developing their ability to actualize,
to find themselves.
And we can talk about it being employability skills, but what do I want them to be able to negotiate. I want them to be able to use information in the right sort of way. I want them to be able to present themselves. I want them to learn how to be self-confident. And I think all of those things, because one thing that I would often see, students would come back and say, we went to an interview, but there were these people from Oxford and Cambridge. And those people from Oxford and Cambridge, they're brought up to be self-confident. And it's amazing how well those people sell themselves. And that's back to what I would say about, there's some inbuilt things in our society whereby people have doors open to them because They expect them to be.
Yeah.
They know that they're supposed to get what they're supposed to get. And then you've got the other people who they expect to have to go over barriers. They expect to have to fight twice as hard.
I could relate.
Yeah, well,
I could relate.
yes, that's right. And you think to yourself, that shouldn't.
No.
It shouldn't be that you have to try twice as hard as them to get to where your talents. I mean, and that's shame on us, society in general, because you've got all these talents and we're not getting access to them because of our own blindness to the fact that the opportunities aren't presented to whoever it is. And so I think that's my frustration. And we're not